UK and China playing the carrier power projection game. The UK and China found themselves playing the same game in recent weeks as both countries sought to demonstrate their respective purported improvable naval power via the medium of regional port visits by their frontline aircraft carriers. Chinese fighter jets staged simulated missile attacks on a Royal Navy warship as it passed through the Taiwan Strait earlier this month. China maintains sovereignty over nearly all of the South China Sea and has expanded its presence in the waters in recent years, despite opposition from countries such as the Philippines and Vietnam as well as an international court ruling. Chinese fighter jets reportedly targeted the frigate HMS Richmond as it was sailing through the Taiwan Strait this month. HMS Richmond, a ship in the UK's carrier strike group, passed through the strait alongside the US destroyer USS Higgins on September 12. The group's transit through the disputed route. Richmond left her home port back in April to serve as the first line of anti-submarine defense against threats and any unwanted presence beneath the waves around flagship HMS Prince of Wales and the rest of her multinational task group. She broke away after exercises with the Republic of Korea Navy, and while the carrier and her escorts made for Singapore for the second time, the ship has now rejoined the carrier force for the latest large-scale exercise of the High Mast deployment, Bersama Lima, a test of the military forces of the five-power defense arrangement UK, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand to demonstrate their collective ability to safeguard the region. Chinese fighter jets staged simulated missile attacks on a Royal Navy warship as it passed through the Taiwan Strait earlier this month. HMS Richmond, a ship in the UK's carrier strike group, passed through the strait alongside the US destroyer USS Higgins on September 12. The ships are part of the United Kingdom Carrier Strike Group and are taking part in Operation High Mast, a deployment involving nearly 4,500 British and international military personnel. The fleet has traveled through the Red and Mediterranean seas, visiting Oman, Singapore, Japan and Australia along the way. China maintains sovereignty over nearly all of the South China Sea and has expanded its presence in the waters in recent years. HMS Richmond passed through the strait alongside the US destroyer USS Higgins on September 12. At the time, China's Eastern Theater Command accused the ships of troublemaking and provocation and said it dispatched naval and air units to follow the vessels. China simulates attack on Royal Navy warship. Tactic directed at HMS Richmond mimicked missile launch through Taiwan Strait without actual fire. China maintains sovereignty over nearly all of the South China Sea and has expanded its presence in the waters in recent years, despite opposition from countries such as the Philippines and Vietnam as well as an international court ruling. Trillions of dollars worth of trade passes through the waterway every year. China has turned some of the islands into military bases, but other states, including the Philippines, Malaysia and Brunei, have also claimed the region. Earlier this month, Beijing approved the construction of a national nature reserve at Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea, a hotly disputed territory that the Philippines also claims. Prior to the Prince of Wales's transit, China deployed both of its operational aircraft carriers, the CNS Liaoning and the CNS Shandong, beyond the second island chain, an increasingly influential group of islands which stretch from Japan to Indonesia's eastern islands. The Prince of Wales and HMS Richmond are part of the Royal Navy's Operation High Mast, an 8-month deployment which has seen British vessels sail through the Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, Australia and Japan. The operation will end in December. In June, 2 British patrol vessels, the HMS Tamar and HMS Space, sailed through the Taiwan Strait for the first time in 4 years. A Chinese Navy spokesman called such journeys intentional provocations that disrupt the situation and undermine peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. Beijing said it dispatched naval and air units to shadow the ships. HMS Richmond and HMS Prince of Wales are both participating in Operation High Mast, an 8-month Royal Navy deployment across the Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, Australia and Japan, due to conclude in December. Chinese fighter jets reportedly targeted the frigate HMS Richmond as it was sailing through the Taiwan Strait this month, but stopped short of taking any action. Among them was a Changhe Z-10 fighter jet, which tailed one of the anti-submarine helicopters launched from the Richmond. China claims sovereignty over nearly the entire South China Sea, ignoring rival claims from the Philippines, Vietnam and others, as well as a 2016 International Tribunal ruling rejecting its stance. The Prince of Wales was also tracked by Chinese ships as it sailed through the disputed Spratly Islands in the South China Sea last week, where China has used to build military bases. In a show of force prior to the Prince of Wales transit, Beijing deployed both of its operational aircraft carriers, the CNS Liaoning and CNS Shandong, beyond the second island chain stretching from Japan to Indonesia. UK and China playing the carrier power projection game. The UK and China found themselves playing the same game in recent weeks as both countries sought to demonstrate their respective purported and provable naval power via the medium of regional port visits by their frontline aircraft carriers. This saw the UK Royal Navy's Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales head to Singapore, a former British colony, at the end of June as a headline element of the 6-month deployment into the Indo-Pacific region. China's People's Liberation Army Navy aircraft carrier Shandong similarly headed to Hong Kong, formerly a British colony and now a special administrative region of China, in the early days of July for a 5-day visit, wowing crowds according to the Global Times state-run news outlet. Both the UK's and China's visits are part of the harder edges of military soft power projection, touring friendly or allied states. UK-China relations have been complex, with incidents such as Huawei's ordered removal from key areas of the UK's 5G telecommunications infrastructure in 2020 and the effective nationalisation of the China-owned British Steel in 2025, two examples of recent fractious ties. Of the Huawei decision, all of its hardware must be removed from the UK's 5G network by 2027. Beijing also reacted furiously to the recent passage of a Royal Navy's patrol vessel through the Taiwan Strait, a strategic body of water between the mainland and what it considers to be a breakaway province. However, a much greater diplomatic land naval mine is waiting just around the corner, following the UK's decision not to publish the new China audit, which sought to determine an economic and diplomatic path forward in ties between the two countries. Frigate HMS Richmond was sailing through the Taiwan Strait earlier this month when it was targeted by fighter jets performing maneuvers similar to those used during an attack, though they did not launch missiles, according to the Times.